Today's episode is all about how finances and life planning differ for those who are child-free or permanently childless, a topic that is often overlooked in mainstream financial advice. We're thrilled to dive into this conversation with Jay Zigmont and explore the unique challenges and opportunities faced by the child-free community. Welcome to Wealthy After 40, where I help you turn retirement uncertainty into a clear, actionable plan. If you're thinking about retirement but feel unsure whether it's even possible, I understand. The gap between where you are now and where you want to be can feel overwhelming, but it doesn't have to. Hi, I'm Daylene Higgins, founder of Elevate Finances and your personal financial coach. Having retired at the age of 50 and have enjoyed over 2 years of retirement bliss, I'm here to help you create your retirement dream and make it a reality. No more wondering, no more guessing, just taking action and building a future for yourself. Join me each week as I guide you through essential topics such as budgeting, cash flow, lifestyle planning, debt and savings, insurance, Medicare, and Social Security. Together, we'll build a strategy to help you achieve the retirement you've always desired. It's time to shift from uncertain to unstoppable and make your retirement dreams a reality. Are you ready to align your generosity and retirement vision for a life of true abundance? Join Allison Patterson, generosity strategist, and myself, Daylene Higgins, financial and retirement coach, for a powerful one-week Facebook event. During this event, we'll help you align your generosity with your values, whether it be time or money, and help you design a retirement with purpose that excites and fulfills you. The Facebook group opens March 3rd, so join the group, answer the questions, and you'll be approved on March 3rd, ready for a transformational experience. Search Aligned Abundance in Facebook or click the link down in the show notes. Excited to see you there. Welcome to the episode. I'm excited to interview Jay Zigmont today. Welcome to the podcast, Jay.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and what sparks your passion.
I'm a certified financial planner. I'm also the founder and CEO of Childfree Wealth. What I do is I spend my time thinking about how finances in life and your estate plans are different if you never have kids. And come to find out, about 25% of the US are child-free or permanently childless. Yet nearly all the financial advice out there assumes you do or will have kids. So it's that interesting intersection of an area that has not been talked about, but with a really big group that needs help.
Yeah, that's interesting. When you sent me that statistics, I was like, wow, that is a lot. So how does being child-free impact life and finances?
The way we say it is living a life of child-free wealth means you have time, money, and freedom to do what you enjoy. It doesn't automatically make you rich. So there's no magic check that comes through the air when you're child-free. Like people are like, you don't have kids, so you have to have a lot of money. No, there's still people struggling who are child-free. But it often means you get more choices. Where my wife got offered a job 1,200 miles away, we packed up the dogs and the cat and left. I mean, it was not a big deal. Although I do have to say, you have to see 2 mastiffs in the back of a Prius. That was rather entertaining. But we could just go.
Yeah.
And what happens is when you have that much freedom, you can get a little analysis paralysis or paradox of choice. You're kind of like, too many choices. But the other challenge is you're not following the standard life script. The standard life script is you go to school, you get married, you have kids, you pass them on to the next generation. Well, when you're not following the standard script, things feel like they don't fit you. Even something like buying a house is not a great idea for most child-free people because they move all the time. There's just different assumptions that happen there. So we end up saying to our child-free clients is you plan for your life first, then your finances, then your taxes, which is completely different than, hey, I just save for retirement. When I'm ready, I can retire.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to individuals who are child-free and wanting to create a fulfilling and secure future?
So the first question we really get into is kind of, what do you want your impact to be? you get to kind of that 40s-ish age, a lot of child-free people hit what we call the child-free midlife crisis. This is when you hit your personal, professional, financial goals, and then you're like, what do I do next? What's the next 40 years of my life look like? What do I want to do? And what happens is for parents, often their goals will shift to their kids. Whether that's right or wrong, that's a different discussion, but I want to make sure Johnny goes to college or, grandkids or whatever else it is. But with child-free folks, it's a question of what type of life you want to live. For most child-free people, they don't have a priority of passing on money to the next generation. If that's the case, you're essentially trying to die with zero. That changes all of the financial planning. Additionally, most of the people I've worked with don't truly want to retire. Rather than follow on FIRE, financial plans to retire early, they follow what we call FILE, financial plans to live early. And it's really about shifting the work you do, cutting back. It's like kind of a dimmer switch for work rather than an on-off switch. Like I have clients who are like therapists, and they're like, oh, I'm going to go from meeting with clients 5 days a week to 3, but I'll probably always do some work. And that, even though those two basic changes all the assumptions in your financial plan. And it challenges a lot of the standard rules, like the 4% withdrawal rate, that doesn't fit child-free people because the assumptions are different.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how does somebody child-free, like they're living for now, but how do they plan for the final? What is it that they need to have in place different than those of us who do have somebody to pass to?
So the question we usually get as child-free people is, well, who's going to take care of you when you're older? And I kind of have a love-hate thing with this question. And what I hate about it is that makes an assumption that your kids are going to take care of you. And if you actually look at the data does not back that up. So the US Census looked at adults over 55. They found that for childless adults, 2.5% got any financial support from their family. But they looked at adults over 55, and 1.5% of adults got any support from their family. So this assumption that like kids are going to take care of me when I'm older, the data says no. The difference is we know it. So what we try to do with our clients, our goal is by about mid-40s to have a plan for long-term care. That's either long-term care insurance, money set aside, or whatever type of plan works for you. And we're doing that because long-term care is stupidly expensive. It's $115,000 a year for a nursing home. Men spend 2.2 years in it, women 3.7. Huge numbers. And those costs are rising by 5% a year. And we try to have a solution by mid-40s because that's actually when insurance, long-term care insurance, is most affordable. Now, I say affordable. That's kind of not really the truth. Like, it's when the price is reasonable versus really expensive. We make that part of the plan. The financial part is actually probably the easier part. The harder part is who's going to make decisions for us. So the way I look at this is for my wife and I, if we get a car crash, who makes our medical decisions, who makes our financial decisions, and who lets our dog out? Which sounds like a silly consideration, but my wife's going to be more concerned about the dog than she is me. I mean, I say that tongue in cheek, but probably that actually is true. But like, who does that when you don't have next of kin? Because all of the systems are based on next of kin. And when you take into account that 32% of childless folks will never marry, we're talking a lot of what we call soloists, single note. It's a big issue. And it's one that I've been working on for about 3 years. And we hope to have a product out middle of next year to do this, where we'll actually be able to serve as child-free people's medical power attorney, financial power attorney executor. Because right now, the answer is in California or Arizona, you can appoint a professional fiduciary. In other states, there's not really a great choice, except the government making decisions for it. And I don't care whether you like the government or not. I just don't want them making decisions for me. Yeah. And that's where it kind of starts shifting this thoughts about like, well, how do I make sure like I'm taken care of and all my needs are met? The money stuff of it is actually the easier.
So how does somebody, especially child-free, they probably have siblings or something like that they could, revert to or whatever, but stepping into that role and being prepared, how do the child-free single or couple plan and think ahead about who to put in that role and how quickly?
Yep. Long-term care. The reason why I picked 45 is because of a lot of things you just talked about, like it's easier. But the other part of it is your long-term care quote is based on your parents' health. So if you're 45, your parents tend not to have the dementia, Alzheimer's diagnosis already. if they have that diagnosis, you might not even be able to get coverage. So just food for thought. Now, when it comes to kind of like what do we point? So here's some numbers for you. In the US, about 58% of the US do not have an estate plan. So the estate plan is the will, medical power of attorney, financial power of attorney, trust if you need it. And that's an issue because what happens is, as a child-free person, if you don't have the paperwork in place, they're kind of lost. In theory, some states will find your parents to make decisions, but let's be real, that's going the wrong direction. The likelihood that your parents are going to be there for you to make the decisions are very low. So you have to have it. So what I do with my clients is, even in their 20s, we will get that paperwork in place where it will lay out what are their wishes, medical, financial, will, and who's responsible for it. The issue of who's responsible is a big one because it turns out in the US, about 25% of people are disenfranchised from their family. So that's actually, I don't know if that's a higher or lower number than I expect, but like when I first found it, I'm like, yeah, it sounds right-ish. But then if you look at like a lot of the child-free community or LGBTQ+, well, that community is a much higher percentage disenfranchised from the family. The other stat is about 20% of people in the US, even if they're not disenfranchised, don't live anywhere near their family. Mm-hmm. So like you're talking huge numbers that don't have somebody to do it. And I've been working on this for 3 years to try to find solutions and really could not find anything. You can often get an attorney to serve as your financial power of attorney or executor. They won't touch the medical part. And the other problem is child-free people move all the time. Yeah. The editor for my new book, her and her dog lived in a different Airbnb each month across the country. Where are you today? Joshua Street. Where are you tomorrow? Like, who knows? Well, how do you manage your care when you're all over the place? Because each state makes its own rules around who can be your power of attorney and how that works. What we ended up deciding is we partnered with a trust company, and we're going to serve as child-free people's executive power of attorney because there was not another solution. I would love to have one. And I was doing a podcast recently, and somebody said, shouldn't they change the laws to find a way to help people do this? And the answer is great, but it hasn't changed. Yeah. Some child-free people are like, they're going to do what we call like the Golden Girls setup, a whole bunch of friends together. Well, that's great because you can provide support to each other. But the last friend in the group is out the hook. At some point, this isn't going to work. And it's a huge burden. Let's just be real on that. I had somebody, he has kids, but he explained to me this way. He said he wakes up every morning thinking, I killed my mother. And I was like, whoa, what do you mean? And he said, look, I knew all of her paperwork. She didn't want to be on the machines. I had to tell them to pull the plug. I still wake up every morning thinking about that. We don't really talk about this stuff because it's bad. And I think part of the reason why 58% of the US doesn't have estate planning is you don't have an answer. Like, what do you want to put down? I have nothing. Yeah. And we need as a society to figure out better ways for people to do this. What I tell my clients, so we have a program we call the 8 No Baby Steps, and that's the financial planning we do for child-free people. And step 7 is, what is your plan for your parents? It's not your kids, your parents. Like, what does their paperwork say? What do they want? And all that. And I really use that as an opportunity to then walk through and go, well, what do you want? And I had somebody explain it to me this way. He said his mom was 90-something in a nursing home, and she loves chips. But the nurses said, you can't have your chips because, your sodium or your diet or whatever. And he went to nurse like, just give her the damn chips. Like, what's it going to do to her? And his question was, who makes sure I get my chips? And like, that's actually a harder question than like, the doctors will make the decision, you've got to pull the plug or something like that. But like, how do you make sure you are dying with dignity? You have what you want, and there's not a great answer. And what happens for child-free people, if you don't have a will, if they can't find next of kin, the government will take all your stuff, which I don't think anybody wants. So it's one of those areas that, like, I think as a society, we have not talked about enough because it's just scary. Nobody wants to talk about it, But if you don't plan ahead, it's a nightmare. At least your parents have planned ahead. I had worked as a paramedic early in my career, and I remember this time I went to this patient's bedside. He was in cardiac arrest. 8 family members are on the bed. Half of them are saying he wanted to go peacefully. And the other half are saying, no, do the code, work the patient. And I looked at them and I was like, do you have any paperwork? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, then I'm going to do what I have to do. I got to do the, CPR, all the other stuff until you find the paperwork. Can you imagine your family members around the bed? I mean, the guy actually was dying of cancer. It was, oh, sorry, man, but like fighting over whether or not what the paramedic should do.
Yeah.
The answer is paperwork. Like, I understand some people weren't checking it, but in that case, like, yeah, I need something in writing before I can just be like, okay, I trusted half the room.
We'll be back after a quick break.
You've worked hard, saved what you could, and now retirement is on the horizon. But instead of feeling confident, you're stuck in uncertainty and wondering if you're truly prepared. The fear of running out of money keeps you up at night. You don't have a clear budget that shows you exactly what you need. You're tired of the guessing game, feel like you're dipping into savings too often, and you're also feeling guilty every time you spend. That's exactly why I created my Retirement Ready VIP session, a 2-hour deep dive where we'll map out your money, create a simple budget, and give you the steps needed to make retirement possible. Imagine knowing exactly where you stand, the confidence to spend, save, and retire without stress. Let's make that your reality by booking your Retirement Ready VIP session today at elevatefinances.us. The link is also down in the show notes. Yeah. And, I tell people, because I've had estate planners on before as well, I'm like, you have got to talk about this section of life. You've got to be prepared. Death is hard. Losing parents is hard. Losing siblings, same. You've got to be prepared. If you know their wishes, that at least makes it easier on a subject that is much more difficult. But I also had a thought, with those that are child-free in their 20s, they're going to think differently about death than those individuals in their 50s and those individuals in their 70s. I think, at 20s, you're invincible, you're never going to die. And do any life-saving measure, unless you're that rare one. And then it's like, okay, so what do you do? And I think that's really a hard step for anybody, is like, what do I really want? And I think you get to a certain age and you're like, it doesn't matter. When it's time, it's my time, but you've got to express that to the people that are needed. So,
And I'm going to challenge you here. So the 20-somethings that I've dealt with have had an answer of what they want, and actually a rather informed one. Mm-hmm. And I say that because, there's a lot of politics right now and, things around health and medicine and all that. But what happens is they're like, hey, this is what I want and this is what I don't. And I even had somebody, she's in her 20s. She went out and researched and actually went to a facility, did a tour of a place that composts your body. Mm-hmm. Like it was part of this nature thing and all that. Like, I know 20, I wasn't doing that.
Yeah.
But this generation is like literally she's telling me about like their composting process for body that I had no clue about. Wow. So I think it's just what I'm seeing is the younger generation. So we talk Gen Y and Gen Z are very thoughtful and they're pausing before they do things. And that's part of the reason why we're seeing those younger generations with a higher percentage of child-free people. If you look at the numbers in adults under 49, if they don't have kids, 47% say they never will. So it's a huge percentage. If you look at Gen Y and Z, it's going through the roof. And somebody will argue with me, well, hey, they don't know what they want. Well, I'm talking about people that are getting sterilized at 21. So this is not changing their mind. But if you actually ask them, why are they not having kids? They have a wide variety of reasons. Some just didn't want to have kids. Some it's finances. Some it's the environment. Some it's politics. Some it's medical issues. Really well thought out reasons. And then some can't. That happened to be the case for me and my wife. But the reality check is the younger generations are stopping to think about a lot of things that you and I didn't when we were their age. I was dumb at 21. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's like they have so much more, I think, exposure. And I'm just going to use that term loosely, that I do think that they are being fed a lot more information. And hopefully, like that gal you just mentioned, they are doing the research, because there's a point in seeing the information, and there's another step of actually researching it and consuming it for yourself. So, all right. So look, Gen Xers, child free, they were like us at 20 and not thinking, we were invincible, all of that. That's pretty much our generation. We were diehards. But if they find themselves now, so roughly Gen X is mid 40s to, 60, I believe, have just turned this year. What do they do at this point? They're child free. Maybe they've never thought about financial planning, medical planning, all of these things. Where should they start?
Yeah. So I'm a Gen Xer, and the interesting thing about Gen X that you have to keep in mind is, of course, we have that independent latchkey thing going on. That's just kind of the way we're raised. But it's the first generation that's going to retire without pensions. And when I say that, like, there's small amount of like government pensions, like firefighters and things like that, but like they're so small, like they're a small handful. And what I'm seeing is we get a lot of these folks in, and they're in that midlife crisis thing. They're like, what do I do with the second half of my life? Because they've just done what they were supposed to do. You go to school, you work hard, you go up the ladder. We have a podcast, Childfree podcast, and one of our top downloaded episodes is I'll make you quit your job. Because I have so many people like, they're miserable at their job.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, look, how about we change? And they're like, well, but I went to school to be and I went up the ladder. And I'm like, listen, the 18-year-old version of you picked the school. Mm-hmm. And then you went into the career and all. The 18-year-old version of you was dumb. Why are you still following their choices? And I see a lot of Gen Xers going, I want to do an encore career where they're like, I want to do something different with my life. I got people starting business. I got somebody doing pottery. I got somebody like writing books, whatever it is. But what I'm trying to do is get them to stop and go, what life do you want to live first? So often the first question I'll get from them is, when can I retire? I go, okay, do you want to retire? They go, no. Then why are you asking me when you can retire? I'm like, well, that's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. And
there's like this trap of what I'm supposed to do versus what you really need to do for your own personal planning. The way I say to child-free people is, if you go to get financial planning, I want you to ask how your plan is different because you're child-free. You're going to get a couple different answers. Actually, most common is you'll change your mind, which is just not appropriate. There's a lot of judgment there. Second I'll hear is it's not different. That's not true either. Often planners will say, hey, I don't know. And I'm actually okay with that answer. Like, let's figure it out together. But it is a different way of thinking. So like, great example is like life insurance for child-free people, not a big need. If you're single and child-free, there's probably no need for it. And these are the things that just people don't think. And what happens is when I engage with child-free people on their financial plan, we'll go through all their numbers. We'll get things cleaned up, their accounts all over the place. Gen Xers have like 6 401k accounts at all different companies they've worked for. We'll clean that all up. And then we'll go through the numbers and I'm like, you're okay. Because they were doing good saving. They were doing their thing. What do you want to do next? And they're like, I don't know. Yeah. And I'm like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I don't know. It gets to the point where I'll say to my clients, okay, let's do it this way. What is the second line of your obituary? So the first line says Jay died at this age, this location. The second line is usually father of 3, leaves behind. For child-free people, what is it? What is your impact? What do you care about? What do you want to do? And it's interesting because most of my clients say like, well, nobody's ever asked me these questions. And I'm like, well, if you don't have the answer, you can make a financial plan that gets your numbers to go up, but that might not be your goal. Yeah. Like you might be making the wrong choices for you. And that's hard for people. Like I spend more time with my clients talking about spending money than saving money. Like it just messes with their head.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. Some great points, great tips, a lot of aha moments I've had. I hope listeners have had. So how can they connect with you? How can they learn more about child-free planning?
So we're at childfreewealth.com, all the socials, Childfree Wealth, and just put out a new book, The Child-Free Guide to Life and Money, available in bookstores everywhere.
Great. And all of those links will be down in the show notes. So Jay, thank you for your advice, your wisdom, and your expertise. And we will have listeners next week. Thanks for listening. Each week, my goal is to help you get one step closer to retirement so you can be excited for that big day instead of stressed and just hoping it will work out. If today's episode got you thinking about your retirement planning and wondering if you're on the right track, let's connect. Schedule a free Q&A call to discuss your retirement needs and how I can support you in creating a retirement that's possible. Or if you know you're ready, schedule your Retirement Ready VIP session to dive deeper into your retirement goals and design the life you want. Complete with a personalized roadmap, you'll be on your way to a dream retirement. Don't wait to take action. You deserve the retirement you dream about. Be sure to take that first step today. And if not, be sure to tune in next week for the episode to learn more and move yourself to a retirement that's possible.